The storm broke upon an ill-fated dawn, a moment not of birth, but of calamitous reckoning. The sky, which had known only the bright sun of Osuru, turned a sickening bruise purple, and the very air tasted of brine and impending doom. From the churning abyssal depths of the ocean rose Eda, cloaked in kelp and shadow, a primordial of pure, concentrated vengeance. His host was a legion beyond human or godly comprehension, serpents whose coils could indeed encircle mountains, their scales reflecting the foul light of the dawn, the spirits of tempest and ruin, howling winds given malevolent form, and all the wretched, despised children of the giant's vapor, the forgotten, the enslaved, now returned as instruments of their master's downfall. Leading this tide of terror was Nakoro, the great serpent of the ocean, a creature of such monstrous, mythical size that when its head breached the waves, the water level dropped perceptibly, only to rush back in a tidal wave as its colossal body followed. A living catastrophe that defied the physics of the sea. And with Eda came his daughter, Ashara, a being of terrible, deceptive beauty. In the years before this day, she had worn the mask of love, appearing to the mighty core in the guise of a fellow craftsman seeking knowledge. She had woven her guile around him with such subtle art that he, in his pride and eagerness to share his craft, never perceived the trap. Night after night, she had drawn from him the profound secrets of forging weapons, not mere tools of war, but armaments capable of piercing the very essence of immortality, of slaying even the gods. When at last she had extracted all she needed, she vanished as mist vanishes before the sun, leaving Kor with the bitter realization of his betrayal. Her presence now was a living testament to the deep, fundamental fraud that had fractured the world's order. The second wave of destruction manifested with the arrival of Osum. He came not as a figure upon the water, but as an encroaching, physical absence of light. Darkness, dense and palpable, engulfed the world, suffocating the morning. His storms were not the natural cleansing of the sky, but a malicious blotting out of the sun, casting the world into an eternal eclipse. His winds, malevolent and sharp, did not merely shake trees, but tore them, whole and uprooted from the ground, as if they were weeds. And his waves, these were not the rhythmic pulse of the sea, but monstrous, unforgiving walls of water that crashed against the pristine shores of Osuru with the deep, resonant voice of absolute doom. When Hiher, the first among primordials, finally beheld the staggering, malignant tide of the advancing host, the last vestiges of his self-deception and pride crumbled. He understood, with a crushing finality, the true depth of the cosmic fraud that had been perpetrated, not by Eda alone, but by his own poisoned mind, his own willingness to believe lies whispered in his beloved's voice. He turned to Nkeke, his counterpart and companion, and searched her eyes. He found there no trace of the anticipated bitterness or betrayal, only a fierce, unwavering determination that mirrored the resolve hardening within his own heart. "I have wronged thee," he spoke, the admission a raw, simple truth stripped of all artifice. Nkeke, already taking up her great war spear, did not soften, but her voice was a steadying force against the chaos. "We shall speak of it after," she replied, her gaze fixed on the enemy. "If there be an after." The battle was upon them, and all lesser concerns were momentarily submerged. Hiher, rallying his spirit, sent forth a clarion call, summoning the remaining primordials, both the mighty, who were born for war, and the mild, who knew only peace. Kor, the betrayed smith, answered the summons, bearing a terrible panoply of weapons, forged in the frenzy of a single sleepless night after discovering Ashara's deception. Tano, the embodiment of terror and the earth's inner fire, came with a righteous rage that vibrated through the ground itself. Jifa, the compassionate, came reluctantly, for her nature despised violence in all its forms, yet the bond of kinship and the threat to order would not permit her to abandon her family. Even Tuvor came, his face a mask of conflict, for his heart was hopelessly divided, and his loyalty to the cause was deeply suspect. Kapor the Watcher, who had seen all history unfold and knew the shape of the future, surveyed the seemingly endless enemy host from the ramparts. His voice, when he finally spoke, was grim and heavy with foreknowledge. Their numbers are as the sands of the sea. We are but few. Then we few shall stand, Hiher declared, his voice ringing with the finality of a god who chooses his fate. Better to fall defending order than to live as slaves to chaos. The choice was made. A heroic, final defense against the erasure of all they had built. The song Smiths, Lorlo, Lorvi, and Malor stood intentionally apart from the formation of warriors. They were not, by their nature, combatants, their hands skilled only in crafting harmony. Yet, as the two forces surged toward each other, they raised their voices in a breathtaking, powerful song, a symphony of defiance and hope. Their music became a shield, a balm, and a renewed source of strength that poured into the hearts of the defenders of Osuru. The two hosts met at the gates of Sheol, the dark, transitional prison that existed between the fundamental states of being and unbeing. It was a tragic, inevitable irony that this final, world-ending war should find its center in the very place where the first great injustice, the imprisonment of Ejo and Osi, had been committed. Here, at the threshold of that ancient wrong, the reckoning would be paid in full. The battle that ensued was a spectacle of elemental power and sorrow, terrible beyond any power of mortal or immortal description. Nakoro, the great serpent of the ocean, a creature of world-shattering might, targeted the leader, advancing upon Hiher, its gaping maw wide enough to swallow whole mountains. Hiher, the cornerstone of order, stood his ground. As the serpent lunged, he met its attack not with a weapon, but with his own divine, unyielding strength. He thrust his foot into its lower jaw, wedging the bone, and seized its upper jaw with his mighty primordial hands. "I am Hiher," he roared, his voice a sound of pure, absolute command, shaking the very foundation of the prison. "First among the primordials, and thou shalt not pass." The serpent thrashed and writhed, its power immense, but Hiher held fast, his muscles straining against the weight of the beast. With a final, inhuman effort, he wrenched the monster's jaws apart, tearing sinew and bone until Nakoro's life fled from its colossal form. But even in its final, convulsive death throes, the serpent's venom struck Hiher. It was a poison of mythic potency, burning through his divine flesh like liquid fire. Hiher fell, his vision clouding with an absolute, lethal darkness. He staggered 3 paces back from the serpent's colossal corpse, and then he too collapsed, dead before his body even struck the blood-soaked ground. Nkeke, the fierce companion, witnessed her husband's fall. Her cry of anguish was not merely a sound of grief, but a physical force that cracked the stones beneath her feet. Driven by a grief that transcended her own mortality, she rushed forward to meet the one she held responsible. Ashara, the arch-deceiver who had ruined Kor. They fought with a fury born of profound loss, 2 women who had, in their own ways, lost what they held most dear. One her husband, the other her soul. In the end, their combat reached a terrible, simultaneous conclusion. They slew one another, and their divine, mixing blood stained the earth of Sheol. Kor, the master of craft, advanced to face Osum, the lord of storms. The duel was a clash of fundamental forces, creation against annihilation. Kor wielded a hammer that possessed the power to shatter mountains. Osum commanded winds that could tear holes in the sky itself. They exchanged blows of astronomical power, each strike resonating across all of creation. But Osum's chaotic tempest was relentless and ultimately too strong. Kor, the great smith, fell beneath the howling, enveloping darkness. Eda, the architect of vengeance, and Tano, the bringer of earth-shaking terror, met in single combat. Tano fought with the elemental strength of righteous, unquenchable rage. Eda, the subtle shape-changer, countered with cunning, deep-seated hate and practiced malice. They were perfectly matched, each strike and parry a masterpiece of combat, each feint instantly anticipated. The duel ended in a horrifying simultaneity. Tano's blade pierced Eda's dark heart, even as Eda's claws tore out Tano's throat. Both primordial enemies collapsed, dead. One by one, the last of the loyal primordials fell. Jifa the good, the gentle one, was struck down defending those too weak to wield a weapon. Kapor the Watcher died still gazing toward the horizon, his duty to vigilance unbroken to the very end. Even Tuvor met his end, though his came differently. In the chaos of battle, he had attempted at last to act upon the treachery long brewing in his divided heart. He sought to open a passage for Eda's forces through the defenders' flank, thinking to earn favor with the conquerors. But his eldest brother, who had always watched him with sad, knowing eyes, perceived the betrayal in its very unfolding. With tears streaming down his face, the brother struck Tuvor down, for the good of all that remained. Thus the traitor fell, slain by the very kin he had tried, and failed to betray. The servants of Eda and Osum, the serpents, the storm spirits, and all the chaotic, hateful progeny of the giants, fell likewise, their number insufficient to withstand the ferocious counter-assault of the dying gods. The earth of Sheol, the barren ground between worlds, drank deep of their mingled blood until it could hold no more. And when the very last combatant on both sides collapsed, the din of elemental war ceased. A sudden, vast, and terrifying silence descended upon the battlefield. Only the songsmiths remained, Lorlo, Lorvi, and Malor. They stood amidst the unbelievable carnage, their powerful music having faded to nothing, now silent witnesses to the apocalypse. Tears streamed freely down their faces, reflecting the blood-soaked ruin of their world. Then, the true cleansing began. The rains came. They were not the mundane precipitation of the sky, but the tears of the cosmos itself, a boundless, unending weeping. They fell as a universal mourning for the loss of the primordial age, washing away the blood, the sorrow, the broken order, and the shattered dreams of creation. The rain fell for 7 ages, an incomprehensibly long period of cosmic grief. As it fell, the seas rose, swallowing the continents. The divine flames that had licked at the heavens were quenched. The bodies of gods and giants alike, the victors and the vanquished, were inexorably swallowed by the inexorable dark flood. This was Ashasi, the absolute twilight of the primordials, the end of the first age. Eyah and Enah, the original creators, watched the cataclysm from their remote refuge. The world they had lovingly built, the children they had brought forth, were drowning beneath the cosmic deluge. Enah wept without ceasing, her grief a tangible presence. Eyah held her, though his own heart felt as though it were being torn apart by the wreckage of their creation. "It is ended," he said, the words heavy with the weight of oblivion. "The age of the primordials is past." "Was it for naught?" Enah asked through her tears, her voice a broken whisper. "Did we bring forth children only that they might destroy themselves, erasing everything? Eyah, for the first time in his endless existence, had no answer that could offer comfort. He held her in silence as the rain continued to fall, washing away all they had made. In Sheol, the prison realm, the rising dark waters penetrated even the deepest, darkest catacombs. Ejo and Osi, the original prisoners, felt the cold, inexorable rise of the flood. Yet the keys to their prison remained safe, far from any hand that might use them, locked away in a forgotten vault, submerged now beneath the rising tide. "We shall drown here," Osi stated, a calm, chilling acceptance in his voice. "Aye," Ejo replied, the darkness echoing his resolve. "But we shall not die. We are bound by an enchantment stronger than death itself. We shall wait in the water darkness, and perhaps one day someone shall remember us." The world was unmade, returned nearly unto the primordial void from which it had first been drawn. All the pride, all the glory, and all the magnificent architecture of Osuru was erased, as though it had never been. Yet dawn must follow night, even the darkest, most absolute night. The unmaking was complete, but the story of the cosmos, though silent for a time, was not yet over.